Exergy is a concept that is foreign to most people, but should not be if we really want to be aggressive in exploring solutions. Believe it or not, I'm trying to keep my time down here, so I won't get into the details of all these items. The message is that there are other possible solutions to our energy situation out there, so we need to be judicious as to where we direct our limited resources. Only those with sound scientific methodology behind them should be supported on a large scale or allowed on the grid. As I stated in the beginning, my main purpose tonight is to encourage you to do critical thinking on this very important technical, financial, and environmental matter. Once you start such thinking, you'll soon realize that non-scientific solutions, for instance, political solutions like RPS, are nonsense. So we're going to end on that theme. Because of the enormous amounts of money involved here, we are arrayed against some very formidable forces. And the last thing they want you to do is critical thinking. To sell wind power to you, they've hired Madison Avenue marketers to pull out all the stops, and indeed they are doing just that. Their big gun is the inducement of money. They well know that it takes extraordinary people to think objectively when they are being offered large sums of cash. You can do it. And the enticement about jobs is another financial hot button that lobbyists are frequently pushing. This is a clever distraction that is intended to take away our focus from the main purpose. New energy expenditures are about providing us reliable and economical electric power, not employment. Any jobs that result are a bonus. Don't be distracted. The religious fervor of those promoting all things green is usually quite apparent. To question some of these people about the merits of wind energy is like asking whether Moses really parted the Red Sea. Be prepared for an unhealthy dose of righteous indignation. A fairly new but powerful technique they're employing is called social marketing. Instead of telling you how their product benefits you, they're poised to try to convince you that the product is for the public good. Part of the strategy is for promoters to use very carefully selected words like free, clean, and green. These are designed to elicit your subconscious support for their financial gain. Once you do some critical thinking, though, it becomes clear that wind-powered electricity generation is not really free, clean, or green. Then there's another relatively new tactic that has become so frequent it now has its own name: greenwashing. The idea here is that a business tries to make themselves look more environmentally friendly than they really are. For instance, a hair product company advertises an organic experience with its herbal line of shampoos, but it actually includes some harsh chemicals that are not organic at all. Wind power is a prime example, as many of their claims are bogus and will only be realized as such if you put on your thinking cap. Then there is the concentrated effort to confuse you. Some may say deceive. An example is that marketers lump all sectors of energy together as if they were one problem. They are not. For instance, in the transportation sector, energy independence is a worthy goal. In the electrical power sector, we've essentially already had it. Many promoters purposely confuse citizens on this matter, saying things like wind power will reduce our oil dependence. That's just not true. Magicians as they are, another trick is to use sleight of hand. A common statement that you'll hear from proponents is that wind power should be part of a solution of our energy issues. The question they never accurately answer is how much this part will benefit us and at what cost. This strategy often works, though, as many people genuinely want to do something. Taking advantage of that inclination, the profiteers twist that into a belief that doing something is better than nothing. But is it? As I said, my house burned down, so this example means something to me. It's like you desperately wanting to do something as your house is burning down. An opportunist shows up and offers to sell you bottles of water to douse some flames at $50 each. To further trick you, he has the nerve to say that buying his exorbitantly priced water will help the local economy and provide green jobs. Is this a legitimate part of a real solution to your house burning down problem? I don't think so. The global warming situation is almost exact parallel. Again, profiteers are trying to trick well-intentioned people who have been led to believe that they are in a desperate situation and want to do something to help. Looking at it this way, it's obviously why they won't tell you the scientifically proven benefits or their cost. Still another tactic is distortion. A good example is that wind power marketers may say that nuclear power plants are terrorist targets. Critical thinking research reveals that when you look at how many nuclear power plants there are worldwide and how long they've been in operation, the facts are there have been some 15,000 operational years with nuclear power, with 0 successful terrorist attacks. This isn't just luck, as there are several technical reasons why nuclear reactors are not attractive terrorist targets. As you can see, wind power marketers don't much like nuclear power, mainly because it's everything wind power isn't. So to discourage consumers from embracing their competitor, they also use fear as a tactic. One example is they talk about the danger of an accident to transporting spent nuclear fuel. Well, scientists are one step ahead here and have designed a super heavy-duty transportation container that numerous tests have shown is virtually impregnable. This test shows a flatbed truck ramming into a solid concrete wall. If you have any questions about the forces here, just look at what happened to the truck. Okay, now that you're doing more critical thinking, you'll hopefully say, well, that's good, but how about a hit from the side? Isn't the container more vulnerable from that direction? Well, good thinking. Scientists at Sandia Labs are likewise critical thinkers. They had a flatbed truck directly hit on the side by a speeding locomotive. No container failure. They tried numerous other tough tests to get this container to fail, including blowing it up. None succeeded. All this is not to say that these concerns don't have some validity. They absolutely do. The reality is that these shipment containers are very safe. Again, the important point is to see the risks involved here in an accurate perspective. Here's another attempt to put things into perspective. The answer is a banana truck gives off more radiation than the nuclear truck does. Selling the sizzle is a tried and true strategy when the substance is inadequate. So this is a perfect match for this situation. Lastly, as I've already alluded to, the very essence of science is under a frontal assault by these profiteers. The lobbyists realize that their scheme needs the appearance of some scientific support. Since there isn't any legitimately, their solution is to simply make it up. They have now infiltrated universities and our national academies with the intent of producing bogus reports that to the average citizen look scientific. The key ingredient of their campaign, though, is the disavowal of the scientific method and the substitution of scientific consensus. Consensus science does not simply refer to a theory which has the endorsement of a majority of scientists, like, for instance, the sun is the center of the solar system, but rather to a theory in which the consensus of some scientists is given as the primary evidence of the argument. Of course, no legitimate poll has ever been taken of all qualified scientists, so even the idea of a consensus is speculative. Even if there was, science is never determined by a vote. The best statement I've seen against this corruption is the one made here. Keep in mind, though, that anyone who believes that their theory is supported both by scientific consensus and conclusive empirical evidence would not be promoting the consensus part, as that would be the far inferior confirmation. And consider this hypocrisy. How come the same people who swear by scientific consensus then don't accept another scientific consensus? I'm sure that if you do critical thinking here, you'll see that this consensus charade is not real science. I'm going to show you an advertisement that's frequently run on national TV. Now that you're more alerted to the marketing tactics used against you, see how many of these you can pick out that are used here. You'll have to think, though.
So why are we still stuck with dirty and expensive energy? Because big oil spends hundreds of millions of dollars to block clean energy. Lobbyists, ads, even scandals, all to increase their profits while America suffers. Breaking big oil's lock on our government? Now that's change. We're the American people, and we approve this message.
Fact is that entire ad is either false or deceptive, the entire thing. We can talk later, point by point if you like. I'm no fan of big oil, but I can tell you as a longtime environmentalist that a bigger threat is from environmental zealots. Just look at this graph of the number of national environmental laws. This has obviously gotten way out of hand. So be very wary of these Pied Piper profiteers. They are bombarding you with incessant, very clever propaganda. Since they aren't sure which of the previously mentioned techniques will be most successful, they've adopted a shotgun strategy, using them all. They full well know that if enough baloney is thrown against the wall, something will likely stick. With critical thinking, though, you can minimize being fooled by all this hype. The frontmen for these developments are slick salespeople who are very carefully selected and trained glad-handers. They have one and only one objective: to lure financial strapped towns and landowners into making as many concessions as they can possibly get. You can be absolutely sure of one thing: they are not your friend. We also need to clearly say that their apparent generosity is a complete sham, as they are simply trying to buy us by giving back a tiny portion of our own money. So in summary, we do indeed have some serious energy problems. What that means is that continuing on the path of business as usual is absolutely not acceptable. But what should be done? Well, I can say with certainty that the wrong answer is to be distracted by the money. In my opinion, the right answer is in two parts. First, citizens need to get educated about this technical issue, and then they need to insist that their representatives not support, fund, or mandate any solutions unless they have been proven to be legitimate using real science. The combination of these will lead to a successful result. If you don't get the berm shape part, well, you're probably just a spring chicken. This triangle is another perspective of the same thing. This graphically shows the interdependency of these elements. Along this line, I'm strongly in favor of a 1-year RPS moratorium. We can then use this time to develop an energy plan that actually makes scientific sense, rather than just to be a profit machine for multinational corporations. Unfortunately, informed citizens who are using critical thinking have been very short supply. This is the world we now find ourselves in. Although the idea of using the scientific method to assess our energy sources sounds logical and obvious, it is so far yet to happen. In my view, this is because not enough citizens have gotten involved. Too many people don't want to see, hear, or say anything. So I'm here tonight and I hope that you will get more informed individuals like yourself that can change. Because our energy problems are serious, that's all the more reason we must go about solving them in a scientific manner. Here are some relevant quotes from Carl Sagan, for instance. We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology. Wow. I say amen to these. And just in case you want to quote me, here's the overview of my basic, very simple position. We do have environmental and energy issues, and they need to be solved using the scientific method. Real science. Surprisingly, some communities are afraid to make a stand based on science. Their fear seems to be that it does not address some local concern, like noise. The fact is that the science position is extremely inclusive and covers a very wide range of technical, economic, and environmental issues. There is no more effective position you can take than to insist that our energy solutions be based on sound science. On the other hand, I fully realize there will be some good people who just don't believe that much in science. Since I strongly believe that our country is rooting in freedom, I'm putting forward an alternative energy option that gives every citizen free choice. Plus, it maintains the important right of home rule in your community.